Did you believe when you were a sophomore or junior at Kerrville High that you were going to play at the top level of D1? Like, what was your recruitment process like? Were you a late bloomer? How were you able to stand out and get, I think originally you committed to Oregon and then ended up Texas A&M, two incredible programs. How did you get those offers?
Yeah, I think for me, Kerrville is a sleepy town, 45, 50 miles outside of San Antonio. So, coaches recruit in the state of Texas. It's usually, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and then you'll get some West Texas. So like you have some Austin, but those are kind of like the 5 areas that are recruited. If you start getting outside of those big cities, unless you're a really big powerhouse, kind of a football program or something, you don't get a ton of eyes on you unless you're starting to do some really spectacular things. So my recruiting process was very slow. Sophomore year, nothing. Junior year, really getting into the tail end after football season. Maybe around that spring, I remember being in a baseball practice, February, March, something of after my junior year, and starting to get some offers, smaller offers, and I felt like I was playing really good football. We were a great team going to a state semifinals. We were in the mix as a team aspect, and I was doing what I felt I needed to be doing, individually, and didn't really start getting any offers until then. And then they weren't anything that I was like super
Yeah.
over the moon about. I felt like I was better than a better player than going to some of these smaller schools. And then it really changed. I came into the office one day of my senior year at the very beginning of the year and had a full ride to Stanford. And
Wow.
had never talked to anybody, never talked to a coach, had just got your normal recruiting letters that you get. And then one day a letter came in and it was a lot bigger than the other letters that I
Yeah.
normally get. And I opened it up and it was a full ride to Stanford. And I remember thinking whenever that happened, I was like, okay, well, worst case scenario, I'm going to get a chance to go to Stanford, and whether football or not works out, get one of the best educations
Yes.
that you can get,
Unbelievable.
you know, in the world. And after that, I got a couple packed schools. Oregon ended up offering me as I went to go visit Stanford and Oregon kind of at the same time. And then Texas A&M didn't come in until really, really late. And I ended up committed to Oregon. I wanted to play for Chip Kelly and loved the, uniforms, the Nike connection. They were
Yeah.
really good going to a Rose Bowl every year. And I ended up committing there. And then about 3 months later, 2 months later, I got an offer from an in-state school, which is what I wanted,
Yep.
for my family to have to go to Eugene, Oregon
It's
was
tough to
a
get to from Texas.
2-hour
Yeah.
drive from Kerrville and then a 4-hour flight to Portland and then hop on another
Yep.
flight to Eugene. It was just like, I'm never going to see my family. I'm going to completely across the country and across the world from everything that I had known. And when the Texas A&M offer came in, it was easy for me to say, hey, I'm going 3 hours away now.
So you're a 17, 18-year-old kid having to call up a coach to decommit. I actually went through something similar. So I committed to Ohio State for hockey. And
It's
then
not fun.
yeah, it's the worst. So yeah, talk about like how much it beats to your chest. I remember like my brother and I working through it, trying to console, like, how do we deal with this? Like, can you help me out? He's my little brother too. And I'm like, please, like, I don't want to have to deal with this guy yelling at me on the phone. And that stuff just, it gives you a ton of anxiety. But it does make you more of a man as a young person. Like, how do you remember did you call Chip or did you call the
Oh, I remember
OC?
walking in when I got a couple days after I got the A&M offer, and my head football coach Mark Smith is an amazing man, and he could kind of sense with me that I was weighing on the option of having to do that, and we had a conversation one morning and pretty much said, all right, if you want to go to Texas A&M, we're going to pick up the phone right now. We're going to call Chip Kelly. And I remember looking at him being like, no,
Yeah.
you can find out online.
Yeah, just email him. Let's
At the
go.
time, as being a kid, when
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to.
you're
You want to be away from
16,
pain.
17 years
Yeah.
old, you want no part of the controversy or anything. And
Nothing.
I remember him standing over me, like I can see it in my head as clear as this day, of him being like, we just pick up the phone, we're gonna call him, I'll start out, hand the phone to you, and you just tell him what your decision is pretty much gonna be. And he didn't take it well. I remember getting off the phone feeling absolutely dejected of the fact of having to do it. And funny story, 3 years later in 2014, I go to the NFL draft and the combine. And at the combine, you do a set of interviews. I had 8 teams on my sheet.
Oh,
And the
was he with the
first
Eagles?
person that interviewed me were the Philadelphia Eagles and Chip Kelly.
Yes.
And on the phone, whenever I decommitted from him, he said, have fun playing for pretty much an inferior school for the most part. Oregon's going to the Rose Bowl. Texas A&M is going to probably not very good bowl games back then. And after winning a Heisman, I got a chance to go
Yeah.
back in there and kind of razz him a little bit. Me and Chip always seemed to have, he didn't take it too hard looking
Yeah.
down the road. They ended up having Mariota, guy wins the Heisman, he goes to the NFL. Like, you know, it all worked out for all parties
Yep.
involved. So, you know, we had a good laugh about that a couple years later.